Great. So, all right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this edition of our India Focus Chat and Learn. Today, we'll talk about tips for career growth in the cloud industry. And before we get into the meaty topics, I'll just take you through some of our, basic housekeeping rules. So stay with me for a moment. I know we have been in this pandemic situation for quite some time now to know all of this, but still, just bear with me for a second. So we encourage participation, and we encourage you to turn on your cameras and come off mute and ask questions live. This is a recorded session, so you will come up on the real live recording when you come off mute. And if you're feeling, if you're feeling a bit shy to come off on camera, make use of the chat feature that's available, and write in the chat, write to me, and our team of Power of Life team, and we'll make sure that your question gets answered. And was it even, did it even happen if it wasn't on the social media? So feel free to tag Powerfly and tag InLustro in all of these conversations on social media. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we'd love to know how did you find this session, and what key takeaways you took from this session. With that being said, let's move forward, and let me introduce our amazing speakers. First off, we have Tanmay Kalyani. Welcome, Tanmay. Tanmay is an IIM Bodhgaya alumnus. Tanmay is currently working at Tech Mahindra in the SAP domain. He has extensively worked on SAP, on cloud, leveraging the latest development in technology and hyperscaler ecosystem. So that is just a tiny bit of introduction that I gave, and I'll let Tanmay do justice to his introduction. So welcome, Tanmay. We'd love to know more about you.
Thank you, Sanmaya. Glad to be a part of this, webinar. So give me a second. Let me just share my screen. And would you mind if I stop sharing your screen?
Yeah, absolutely. Just a second, Tanmay. Before, let me just move into our another speaker of the day. So we have Sachin with us. Sachin is an IIM Calcutta alumnus. Sachin is currently leading the Google Cloud team at Wipro, and he has worked extensively worked in the Google Cloud domain, leveraging the latest development in technology and enabling hyperscale cloud practice. So welcome, Sachin. And Tanmay and Sachin, I'll just give a couple of moments to you, and I'll just hand over the floor to you to introduce yourself, because it's just a tiny bit of introduction that I could give you, but there's so much more that we couldn't talk about. So first off, I'll start with you, Tanmay. So just tell me more about your background. When did you get started with your cloud journey, and then we'll move to the presentation.
Yes, perfect. So I am an engineer by nature. I have worked extensively on ground. My first job was to sell product door to door. So I went on and sold PVC pipes and fittings and whatnot. So that was where I began my career, and then after that, I had a switch in my career. I was more interested in technology, and so I thought that I should become a technology consultant, and so I moved on to that space. I have been working with Tech Mahindra for close to 2 years now, and here at Tech Mahindra, I wear a lot of caps. The two predominant caps that I have to wear are, first is SAP on Cloud. I look after their GTM, and I look after all the alliances that we as a cloud business unit have within Tech Mahindra. And second, I am the India market maker. I'm responsible for all the business, SAP related business, which goes through India. So these are the two caps that I have to wear. And if you work for a bigger organization, I'm sure you guys must have experienced it. Your work is not limited to the work that is allocated to you. Your work is so much more than what is given to you. I'm really glad that you guys are creating this portal, so that the new future leaders are getting to know the nuances of the industry. That is a very good job, and I applaud you for that. So that is about it.
Thank you so much, Tanmay. Over to you, Sachin. So let us know more about you. And I see that Sachin is having some technical difficulties.
No, I think I am able to unmute now.
Great.
Yeah. Hi, everyone, and thanks for this forum. Okay, thanks for inviting me to this forum. And I always enjoy sharing my knowledge, and it's always a give and take. Every forum I go, I always learn something back. Right, there's a takeaway for me also. So about me, I am a Google technologist. I am working on Google Cloud for last 2 years. I am heading the Google Cloud practice for Wipro, and we are working with multiple customers across the globe, and we are helping them to resolve their business problem through Google Cloud. Rest of the things we will talk. I know there's an interesting topic. We'll talk about that when my time comes. Over to you, Chinmay.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Over to you, Tanmay. We can't wait to, get to know more about the session that you prepared for us. So over to you, Tanmay.
Perfect, perfect. So give me a second. Let me share my screen first.
Absolutely.
Let me know if you can see my screen, and then I'll begin.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see your screen.
Okay, okay. So perfect. Now that we are done with the introductions, so I can jump directly to, the session that I've planned for everyone who has joined this webinar. So, first of the many questions that I had when I jumped into this industry is what is cloud? Because, we are talking about cloud and why organizations are looking forward to get onto cloud. What is cloud? And then, I'll talk about the liabilities that a customer has to, figure out when they intend to move to cloud. And then, are there any benefits which is very native to cloud, which is not there on its exact counter opposite, which is on premise? Then, what are the kind of companies, bigger companies are going for cloud or not for cloud? What are the, contention points for the bigger companies? Are the smaller companies going for cloud? And what are the kind of strategies that they have in their mind when they think of this journey? Then this entire value chain. So cloud is a very big ecosystem. It is a very big ecosystem. And where you can see yourself in that ecosystem, I'll shed some light based on my experience so that you can carve out a path for your own self. And then what are the learnings that you can have subsequently after, in the span of a few quarters or a few months or a few weeks, what all you can do in order to prepare yourself for that future role that you aspire to have. So these are the kind of questions, that I had in my mind, and I believe that I'm in a good position to answer some of those questions, if not all. So just to begin with, let me give you a flavor of what cloud is for all our not non-technical participants here. So, imagine a space which you are renting from a third party. So all the management, all the maintenance, in most of the cases, all the management, all the maintenance, security, governance, compliance, everything will be managed by a third party. These third parties could be a very big company, hyperscalers, which we call them hyper, very big, and which could be, AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. Then we have GCP, co-host, co uh, the guy, we'll talk about it, and then, GCP. So these are all very big hyperscalers, and then we have, small CSPs, which are distributed across globe. So they are native in nature. They have, some benefits which are very inherent to their own company. Maybe it is some geo related benefits that they have, and so on and so forth. So we'll touch upon each of those points. So now, just to move and talk about what are the advantages and disadvantages of getting onto cloud. So advantages are plentiful. You write cloud computing and you'll get like hundreds of advantages, and you can go through each one of them. In essence, cloud provides scalability. I want to open my business right now. I can host my applications. I can host my data. I can do everything on that third party owned infrastructure. They can scale up my operations at any given point of time. They can scale down at any given point of time. I do not have to incur cost of creating my own infrastructure, of upscaling my own, set of resources who can then take care of the infrastructure. I do not have to work upon the kind of, maintenance or the updates which has to, go through all of those uh, infrastructure. I do not have to do any of those sort of things. But what are the disadvantages? of cloud, because that is something which comes to you once you have worked in this industry. So one of the very big disadvantage that I have personally found out in my career is cost control. When you own an infrastructure, let's say you have a hard disk of 1 terabyte, you know that the maximum amount of storage that you can use is 1 terabyte. Well, you know the same is true for cloud, but that is not true, because what you do in cloud is you tend to set the peak storage. And you say that, okay, out of, let's say in a week, I'll have 2 days where I'll have the maximum capacity utilization. Rest 3 days, I won't have that much of a capacity utilization. And the remaining 2 days, I won't have any, if at all, capacity utilization. What, in turn happens at times is that many of the data start coming in, and the 2 days that you have set your time limit to for the peak utilization, it turns out to be a 4-day event or 5-day event. So the budgeting that you have done crosses a limit which companies or your customers would not want to do. And I'm sure that most of the bigger hyperscalers, or in fact CSPs, other CSPs, they deal with this problem, and they have a very solid mechanism in place. Nothing which helps solve this problem, but a lot of practices which kind of prevent this problem to arise. For example, they have R&Rs, so you can create a persona of a role, of responsibilities, and you can then allocate those roles and responsibilities to the people who will eventually use those services. So, one of you, if this path has some interest of you, then you might get into this career path too, that you have to decide on the personas of the individual. You have to map out the organization first. What is the main group which is important, which should have all the rights to the main data source, and then what are the other fringe groups that you have to take care in mind. So that is one career path that you can get into, which is responsible for creating the personas for cloud. And then many of the big companies, what happens on those companies, and I'll come back to those companies in a while, they need to have a lot of customizations. And in public cloud, most of these customizations are not so much possible. And if at all possible, then it kind of increases the cost to a level that it does not make much sense to get onto public cloud. Now we have private cloud to that rescue, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. But customization is another part, where cloud is in the backhand, because if you own your own infrastructure, then you can do whatever you want to do in that infrastructure, so to speak. So that is the second point. The third is you do not have control over updates. So if you host your application or your data on, let's say, Google Cloud, then the kind of updates which will come to your system, it will be totally dependent on Google Cloud. You would not have any say to that. So many of the companies want this control to themselves. They do not want updates to hamper their entire landscape or their infrastructure or their ecosystem. So they do not prefer to hand over the maintenance and update part to a third party. And then governance. So here there are 2 points. For smaller companies who want to make sure that they are compliant to any particular region or any particular, let's say, policy, they are compliant, they want to get complied to. Public cloud offers a very specific advantage in that regards, because you do not have to care about anything. But let's say if you're a big company and if you're working out of Swiss, and you are a pharmaceutical based company, then you have to make sure that you're compliant of all the policies which are set by let's say FDAs of the world and other GFRDAs of the world. And so it becomes difficult if you hand over this responsibility to a third party. And so here big companies kind of suffer some disadvantages in these regards. And in my experience of dealing with customers day in and day out, I have seen that all these disadvantages are predominantly more towards big companies, not the smaller companies, but 100 years old company or 50 years old company, which has its presence over 100 companies, over 100 countries, or they have warehouses which are thousands in number spread across globe. So those are the companies which suffer these disadvantages. So now I'll move on to my next slide. So again, journey to cloud. So old age companies, it is very difficult, as I was talking about. Lots of customizations are needed, and then you'll need to replicate those applications which they currently use to cloud. And at times it becomes very difficult, to kind of take your data from a siloed place and then move it to cloud. It becomes a very difficult, very tedious task, and the chances of you not doing a great job is kind of high. So those customizations is one thing that I talked about previously, which still holds true. And then second is these legacy old businesses. Let's say they have a factory which is 50 years old. That 50-year-old factory has accumulated data, and then they must have had some application installed into their factory. Now how do you make sure that you integrate a 50-year-old factory to a factory that you will establish today? Then you'll either have to stall the process for some time, you will incur some downtime, or you'll have to make sure that the integration is at place. You'll have to make extra investments in order to make sure that the processes are running. So that is something which becomes very difficult. And then varying data sources, so hundreds of warehouses across globe, and then there are thousands of outlets, then the data coming from each of those sources. How do you integrate all that data? That data could be in different languages, that those data could be in siloed versions, those data could be input to varying applications. So these are the non-uniform technology landscape which we have to deal with if we are dealing with old age companies. And mind you, participants, this is not just all gyan. There are roles which you can figure out for yourself out of these problems, these issues that I've stated. The leaders are made in the times of trouble. So these are the troubleful times, and you can create some use case out of it, and you can create your own business, or you could be joining a big company targeting that weakness. And so most of the times I have seen that we offer private cloud as a service to these old age companies. So they own the infrastructure in some ways. No other company has any access to that infrastructure. And so they kind of deal with all the problems that is inherent to public cloud. Now about new age companies, since they do not have any non-complex environment, they want to follow a very standardized approach to become more agile, to have a DevOps instilled into their company, into their organization. Public cloud is a pretty much straightforward way, to get them to their destination. So for new age companies, it is pretty relevant, so to speak, and you do not have to deal with a lot of complexities, which is inherent to any old age companies. So now, now the area of interest to all of you, and that is why I believe I'm here. So what are the career paths that you possibly could do or could pursue in the span of your career? So imagine this cloud as an ecosystem which starts from point zero and it goes till sky is the limit. It can go till 100, it can go till 150, it can go till infinity. Limit tends to infinity. Now it is up to you where you want to stop. System integrators are companies like Tech Mahindra, where I am a part of, and then my co-panelist, he comes from Wipro. So his company is a system integrator, TCS, Infosys, etc. These are the system integrators. Cloud service providers are the ones who own these infrastructures, and they kind of lease these infrastructure to any company who would want that infrastructure. Then customer companies, any company who would want to move on to cloud, self-explanatory. And then business owner is anyone who want to start their own startup, who has big dreams, who can find out one, problem out of many, which, perhaps I have stated a few, and they can create their own business model out of it. And then, possibly they can scale it up to heights which is unknown to this entire landscape. So first, let's start with the customer side. You join a company. That company works on an old age model. They have their own infrastructure. They have all the on-prem things that we do not want to do. What could we do then? You as an analyst will identify the requirements that your company might have. You'll collate all of it. You might have a team of 3 individuals, four individuals who will look at 100 different processes which is worked on in your organization. And then maybe, you can say that, okay, out of these hundreds, these are the 5 core processes that I definitely want to move on to cloud. Somebody is making some shapes on my screen, I think. Okay, so, continuing my, so, you have to take all those data points into your consideration, and you kind of collate all that data point into one document. That document could be in the form of RFI, it could be in the form of RFP. And that document has all the things which your organization requires from a partner. That partner would be system integrators or, cloud service providers, depending upon your requirement. Now you could be in the company, you could either research on what processes are important in that ecosystem. You could either, collate all that. You could manage or coordinate all the teams who are doing that and create a sort of bundled view onto your organization on what you want to do. That position is usually IT heads or SAP heads. I work in SAP, so SAP heads or transformation heads of the company. You could be that person in the customer company. Of course, I'm not talking immediately because you'll be more responsible to, research around these things. But going forward, 10 years down the line, you'll head one of these things. So that is what you'll do in customer company. And if that is something that interests you, then you have a lot of resources that you can use, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Now the customer has launched their RFI or RFP. What happens next? System integrators, Tech Mahindra or Wipro, and let's say GCP or AWS, they would come together if if at all required. They would come together and they will sit a lot of individuals, cloud practitioners, like cloud architect, who would architect the whole infrastructure, which would eventually move to, which would have application from the customer. So you might see a position of cloud architect, which will have these figures. And then there will be one subject matter expert on cloud. That subject matter expert could be on modules, could be on hyperscalers, could be on horizontals, could be on verticals, could be on anything. So there would be one SME. You could eventually become that too. But uh, uh, I'm talking about 5 to 6 years down the line. You could become that, or you could become, one of the architects. I talked about cloud architect. You could be one of the solution architects with more focus on any technology or any, again, horizontal or vertical. So you could work on SAP, and at the same time you could work on cloud. So you would know everything which would come from SAP, which would eventually go to cloud. So you could have one speciality on each of these technologies, and then you could club it with cloud, and then you'll have that SME. So that would be one person who would sit eventually, on that bench. Then there would be a person like myself who is the salesperson for the organization. I am the face of the company who uh, exclusively deals with cloud. So you can perhaps wear the cap that I wear, and you could go to the customer and tell them that, okay, Tech Mahindra go forward to, we have this cloud practice, we can do this, we can do that. Then there are pre-sales guys, in system integrators, who kind of help us achieve, our sales, so to speak. Then you could be the alliance manager in SIs. Alliance manager is nobody but a person who can contact a partner of your company. So if I am an alliance manager for my company, I would, if a customer wants GCP, then I would go to GCP and I'll bring them all on the same table and I'll explain everything which we need from them. So you could be that alliance manager when it comes to system integrators. And so these are the few roles that you can eventually have 5 to 6 years down the line. Now you'll have to choose one of them and you'll have to, work dedicatedly towards them. Then you could be a part of cloud service providers. You could join in two regards. First is you can, manage their already built solutions, their already built ecosystem, or you can perhaps innovate, the new ideas. For example, blockchain was, innovated 10 or 12 years ago. It was a once in a lifetime technology. One of you can, with that mindset, innovate a new product which will, turn out to be something really big, which changes the landscape entirely. So you could be that person too, which innovates the product. So you could be all of them. Now you could, you could be the GSI partner, which is nobody, but since the alliance manager is with SI, so GSI would be with cloud service providers. They would talk with system integrators and come up with a joint proposition. So you could be that person too, or you could be the market makers for that company also. That is more of a sales oriented job, which you could perhaps look into. And now business owner. So, talking about India as a market, in India, if you want to have a cloud, service provider, you will have to be MIT certified. It is a certification which is done by the Ministry of, government itself. So you'll have to be MIT certified, and if you at all own a business and you're MIT certified, you're well to do. And now you can innovate, or you can scale up your own business. You can perhaps, make it a South Asia business. You can expand it to ASEAN region, or you can do something else with that business. So that is all dependent on you. So you could be a business owner and you can have a path, you can have a journey which is very extensive in its own nature. So you could be that person too. And I have mentioned, 3 pointers. So horizontals, when I talk about, these are nothing but technologies. So it could be AI, ML, it could be blockchain, it could be IoT, or it could be anything else. So you can work on horizontal. You could have one specialty which works on cloud. So what usually happens is these are the applications which will be needed to be hosted on, let's say, GCP. Now that I've hosted it on GCP, I can inculcate all the other ecosystem benefits which GCP has. It could be a AI related benefit. It could be a blockchain related benefit. So you could have your speciality onto one of them, and you can go and ask, any of the cloud providers saying that, okay, I have this speciality. Please, not please, but recruit me. And so same goes with verticals. Those are industries. It could be retail, it could be CPG, it could be communications, etc. Then modules, hyperscalers, again, you dig down to what modules you can work upon. It could be anything which is specific to a technology, or it could be, anything else depending upon the hyperscaler. Or else you can have a deep down knowledge on a particular hyperscaler. For example, my co-panelist, respected co-panelist, he I'm sure has an expertise on GCP, and hence he's heading that unit. So eventually you could perhaps take on that role too. So those are the few ideas that I wanted to share with you all on the kind of possibilities that just cloud ecosystem presents to you all at this moment of time. And believe you me, most of the big customers, most of the big customers are yet to move to cloud. So if you decide to jump on this train, I'm sure that it will take you to a destination that is good. Now, just to sum up everything, that I have, I'm seeing raised hands. So let me take those questions. Let us take those questions at the end of this presentation. I'll just touch upon, some of the learning paths that I personally follow, because, no time is too less or too far to learn something new when you are living in a technology which is changing its landscape every day. So most of the OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, and in this case, cloud providers and hyperscalers, etc., they have their foundational courses which are free of cost, available for everyone who would want to take those courses. So I would highly recommend all of you who are from technical background to choose courses which are technical in nature and do them. They could be 3 hours long. They could be 4 hours long. depending upon the courses. Or if you have an inclination towards, the side of business of an organization, then I would highly recommend you do some foundational courses on AWS, on GCP, on Azure, on the business side, on the business outcomes rather of using AWS and all. So I would highly recommend all of you to take one of these courses depending upon your area of interest. Second is most of these OEMs, most of these SIs, most of these cloud service providers, or your partner ecosystems, entities of the world, etc. They publish their own blogs, their white papers, their infographics, and they are very knowledgeable in some sense. So if you go to blogsap.com, I believe that is the website. So if you go to that website, that is a blog portal. You can read out a lot of blogs, and you can get a lot of information on on what is happening in the world. So I would highly recommend you guys to start doing it. If you want to move again to the business side, filter all the blogs which are associated to that side of your inclination. Now, most of the companies, for example, Tech Mahindra in this case, we have published, we partnered with an agency and we have published a beautiful 2-minute video of our cloud practice and what we offer to you guys, not to you guys, but the customers. Those are influential in nature. They have all the benefits which could be derived if you use Tech Mahindra, and most of the benefits are commoditized. I can do that. Any other company can do that. So you will get a commoditized view of all the benefits that you'll receive if you go with any other, SI or, testimonials, customer testimonials. Customer went on with Tech Mahindra and they have, done these things, and what are the benefits that they reaped out of it. So you could have a, gigantic, not gigantic, but eagle's eye view of everything, which is helpful when you start your endeavor to go on to cloud. So you can take out some points and you can figure out what benefits you. And then there are many, as I talked about, YouTube offerings and videos that we launch periodically. So you can go to our YouTube channels, Tech Mahindra, Accenture, Wipro, TCS, Infosys, and you can go through all the offerings video that we have. It is very informative in nature. And so I would highly recommend you guys choose to do one of these things in your day-to-day life. And I'm telling you, with enough practice, you'll be able to get onto the role which essentially motivates you. So if anything, any takeaway, I would want this to be a takeaway, from this session that I held for you guys. And with that, thank you. And I'll hand over to the host of this session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tanmay, and you dropped a lot of nuggets of wisdom, and I'm sure all of our participants had some or more takeaways from this session. And I would, I'd emphasize on the fact that Tanmay said that, there are a ton of resources available out there. So there is AWS Educate, there is Azure for Students, and I believe every major cloud platform has some program running for beginners where they hand out some trial credits for you to tinker with and learn the basics and learn the ropes of cloud computing. So make use of those. Just a simple Google search will yield you the results. So go out there, search for it, and kind of grab all the opportunities and resources that are out there. So with that being said, we encourage everyone to kind of come up with their questions that they had. So we will take the questions in the last 10 minutes of the session. And Karan, for now, we'll move on to our esteemed panelists. So Sachin, over to you. I'll just present my screen and we can get started. All right. So let me know, Sachin, when when you want me to move the screen, and we can get started. Is my screen visible? Okay. I believe Sachin is facing a bit of an issue. Just bear with us for a moment.
Yeah. No, I'm good, Sanmay, and thanks for that. I don't know, for some reason, I was not able to unmute myself. So I know Tanmay has given a great presentation about what is cloud all about and how is it helping the world. I'll just take some 15-20 minutes. What I am going to talk is an extension of what he has presented. So what I'm going to talk is that two things, right? Or three things. One is that how the industries are changing with cloud. So slightly trying to take a business view, and what are the skills which are becoming very relevant of late with the cloud adoption. What are the different tracks or paths of cloud industry, some of the challenges faced the cloud adoption by the industry, what you are seeing, because I could see that as a one of the questions. So we'll just try to cover that. And I little bit talk about the GCP certification path. I know we have only 20 minutes, so I'll probably will skip some of the slides. See this particular slide, I was just trying to give you a view of how industry has evolved over a period of time, right? We all say that we are in industry 4.0. You would have heard that terminology many times, right? So industry 1.0, which is started sometimes in the 18th century, which has started more using steam and water technology. Industry 2 was mostly using the assembly line technology. Industry 3 was mostly using the electronics and the computer that has come in sometimes in mid 19th century, right? Now as we speak, we are talking about industry 4, industry 4 plus, where we have all the new technologies like cloud computing, IoT, and all those kind of things are there. How we are more using the cognitive technology than the mechanical power, right? Because if you really see in the initial industries, mostly what was used is the physical power, but industry 3 and 4 started using more cognitive power as a part of the industrialization. So now just Sanmay, if you can move to the next slide. Yeah. So this is just a view for you to see like how the industries has changed, right? So this is in terms of how much time an industry took to hit a 50 million. 50 million is nothing but 5 crore users base, right? Now, if you, we all know now every industry is measured on how many consumers they have. Now, if you really look at it, an airline industry took 64 years to reach 50 million user. Now, if you really look at like bottom of the list, Pokemon took only 19 days to hit the 5 million user base. So what I'm trying to tell here is that the industries are changing, the consumer expectation or the customer expectation is changing, and all those kind of a change has to be powered by the technologies. If you don't have the technologies what we are talking about now, if we don't have now, we could not have achieved this kind of a scale or this kind of a fast adoption of technology in such a short span of time. Uh, if you can go to the next slide, slide 4. So now what is powering this kind of revolution? We have said that 64 years it took for airline industries to adopt so much of user base. And now it is possible with a new product to around 20 to 30 days. What is powering those revolutions, right? What is changing, disrupting the industry? These are whatever we have listed here on the right side are disrupting the industry. And you can see cloud on top of that. And all other industry, if you really look at it in one way or the other way related to cloud. I would say 3D printing, I will keep aside. 3D printing may not be an industry that is very closely working with cloud, at least as of now. But cloud, data, AI, and IoT, these are all like working together to completely disrupt the industries. If you can go to the next slide. Okay, this slide I'll skip anyway. I'll cover that in the subsequent slide. We can go to the next slide, slides 5 and 6. So now we'll talk about a couple of industries and how this has changed, right? Now we'll pick up retail, right? I know most of you, right, would be very familiar with anyway retail as an industry because we all do a lot of shopping or even otherwise groceries, right? So if you really look at the retail as an industry, always we say that retail is an industry, always the torch bearer or the front runner first one to adopt technologies. Now, if you really see the way retail has changed from where it was many years back and where it is, if you really look at last 20 years, retail has completely changed, right? It used to be e-commerce. Now it is quick commerce. You can get anything within 10 minutes of an ordering, right? You have all sort of payment mechanism, all cashless pays, right? You have Google Pays, Paytms. So everything has changed about the retail industry, right? Especially during the COVID time. Now the acceleration has really gone up, right? Now most of the people started adopting e-commerce platform for any kind of purchase. So how is it being all possible, right? These are the industries that are actually powered by cloud from behind, right? So now if you really look at it, if you, I'll take an example of any Flipkart or any of Indian websites, right? You will see that a Diwali season or any of the peak holiday season, the number of users who are trying to purchase or buy from these sites are like, in India kind of country, I would say like it would be around a couple of billions. No, sorry, not couple of billions, at least 2-3 crores would be hitting the website on a same day. The number of transactions, what is going to happen is high. In a uh, traditional infrastructure, it's very difficult to support this kind of a scale. And if you really see, the scale is not that it is happening throughout the year. There are certain seasons where there will be a lot of discounts and there will be a very high number of hits that is happening on the websites. So it's not possible for the retailers also to invest for such a large infrastructure throughout the year for few days of peak load. So all these things is possible using cloud, because cloud is following a principle of pay as you use, right? So which means that if you are consuming more infrastructure, you will pay for that. And in a day, if you are paying for less, if you are consuming less, you will pay for that. And a lot of things, right? Again, retail is an industry, generates a lot of data, a lot of tracking. All those things are being supported again by the technologies on cloud, right? So now if you can go to the next industry, media, right? Media is another industry. If you really look at it, like how was it few years back, right? I know you are all like, many of you could be a very new gen, right? For us, like, no, it was like only there is one channel, Doordarshan, or very few channels at some point of time. Now if you really see, like, we are all talking about an OTT kind of a platform, right? An OTT kind of a platform is like you on demand, you can stream anything, you can play what you want, you can watch what you want. So everything in a media has changed. Now no one is using newspapers, everything is a digital, uh, and everything is personalized. So now how again this is powered, right? This is all again powered by cloud. Now one of the main OTT platform like Netflix, they were one of the first to adopt the cloud, right? They were the first to adopt the cloud around, I think, 2012 or 13. The entire growth of Netflix, they attribute a lot to movement to cloud, because this gave them the flexibility of to scale, the flexibility to personalize. If you really look at the Netflix, right, every time you log in, you will see the choice of movies, your personalization, which needs a very large set of data processing, a lot of AI, artificial intelligence plays on top of that, and again at scale, right, across the globe. And media streaming is not easy, right? Media streaming needs a lot of bandwidth, lot of computing process power. So cloud provides this kind of a industry transformation. So what you are seeing on the media, from what it was few years back to what media has changed now, it is, I would say, a majority of it is powered by cloud, and a lot of it is extended by the data transformational change that has happened over the year. Now you can go to the next slide. This is again about automobile. This is the last industry I'll talk about. Then I'll get into the cloud native skills, right? Automobile industry again. How is it changing, right? If you really see few years back with Telstra, uh, they have completely redefined how an automobile works. Now, automobile is becoming. It's still not for all the cars. but at least the new generation cars, what is coming, the automobile itself is becoming like a unit. It's becoming like a hardware, or it's like a unit, and it's going to be run by the software. So we call that term as software defined vehicle. So software defined vehicle car is becoming like a platform, and it is driven by that, right? We are talking about an autonomous drive, right? We are talking about connected car, how you can do a predictive maintenance of what issue can happen on car. All those things are being again powered by cloud. So what happens is that cloud will become a centralized uh, control plane, and it will have an extension of it running some kind of a platform running on the software cars, or the software on the cars, and then it controls. So there are a lot of again artificial intelligence data transmission, because nowadays cars are emitting a lot of data, right? Cars are emitting like how a driver is using, what is the driver pattern of a car, right? How he's driving, is he driving rash, how is he using the brake? All those data is being captured and being sent and processed. And if you really look at it, this kind of a transformation was unimaginable few years back, because I forgot the exact number. I could see that at least I read somewhere that a car emits around 2 terabytes of data in an hour or something. This kind of a heavy data or heavy storage, heavy processing is not possible without kind of a powered by cloud. Only cloud can really help this kind of a software defined car. Otherwise, every automobile industries will have to invest on huge infrastructure, and they can never reach that profitability. And cloud gives you an economics of scale, right? We call it as an economics of scale. So you don't need to build everything. Somebody is building, you can share it, right? So that kind of a model. So I just wanted to talk about these three industries, how these industries are changed by cloud, so that you will get a perspective of what is cloud in reality, right? We spoke about cloud as a technology, but in reality, what you are seeing every day in your day-to-day life, lot of things are powered by cloud. That is one perspective I want to give. Now I'll quickly, I know we have to give at least 5 minutes for questions. We can skip the next slide and we can go to the other slide, the following slide. Yeah. So what are the cloud skills, right? We talk about cloud computing, but what does it mean, right? So when you say, if someone is, I know Tanmay has spoken about different roles, how it can help in a cloud ecosystem. I just want to give one more dimension to it, like what are the various skills within cloud, right? So if you really look at it in cloud computing, we typically see around 3 or 4 towers or 3 or 4 tracks. One is a pure infrastructure track. It is about managing your virtual machines, managing your compute, managing your foundation network, security. Okay, security anyway I called out as a separate tower, and all those things, right? How will you manage network? How will you manage connectivity, your platform? That is the infra. So if someone is getting into this, right? You know, say if any of you are already working on some of the infra skills, maybe one of you are working on a network related technology in your non-cloud world, right? It is easy for you to upgrade that to the infra side of the world on cloud. It's not too difficult. See, end of the day, cloud is a platform. Okay, it's not a way too different world from what we are living now, right? So it is a different platform. So if someone who is very familiar with a network or other terminologies or compute or storage, those kind of things, can move to the infra track in the cloud. One of the things which is emerging in the infra track or infra track of cloud is something called as infrastructure as a code. This is an important terminology, guys, right? So I think you should actually note this. This is becoming one of the founding stone for cloud, right? Infrastructure as a code. So which means that anything you want to build on cloud, you can write that as a code. Earlier, if you are going and installing, you are creating a storage, you are creating a partition, you are creating something, everything you'll do a manual click. Infrastructure as a code, you will do everything as a script. Okay. And there are certain technologies like Terraform. Terraform is one of the most hottest technology in the market on infrastructure as a code. That is one thing on the infra side. App modernization, anything on the application side. Now we are talking about the infra side of the cloud. Now there could be many things. You are hosting application on cloud, you are modernizing application on cloud. So some of the terminologies which are very important on an application world of cloud are containerization. You would have heard the word called containers. Containers are becoming again one of the very important element of the cloud way of working, cloud native way of working. So you should actually try to understand what is Kubernetes kind of technologies means. That becomes extremely important. If someone is going to the app track of cloud, Kubernetes kind of technologies are must have. Then microservices. Microservices are something like earlier everyone used to build application as a very large monolithic structure. Now everyone is moving to a very decomposed, loosely coupled structure called microservices, which makes it easy to scale. So containerization and microservices, actually microservices enabled by containerization, this supports each other. So these things becomes very important, right? Now database modernization. Database modernization, when if you are talking about application, nothing is application is closely tied with any database, right? No application without, at least very few applications are without a database. Now, one thing that is changing in the cloud world in a database, we call it as a purpose-built databases. Earlier, if you were really tracking the technology few years back, there were only two databases everyone is talking about. One is Oracle, one is SQL Server. That world has changed now. Now, there are different kind of databases available in the market. You would see MongoDB, you would see Cassandra, you would see Graph no, DB, Neo4j. There are different Postgres SQL. There are different type of databases, and each type of databases has a different purpose. That's why it is called as a purpose built. So you would see that like more of NoSQL databases coming into this technology mix, and we call it as a polyglot technologies, right? In the sense that you use what kind of data you want to store, which is the best databases available, pick that. So the database modernization or database transformation, specifically SQL and NoSQL databases, is becoming a very extreme point to note. So I think if you are noting down, you should actually note about what kind of new databases are coming and things like that. Security, as you all know, people first doubt when question many will ask is that how is the security maintained in cloud, right? They are all confident when they are doing something in their own infrastructure. Moving to cloud, how is the security maintained, right? So security is again a very important track, very important career path on cloud world, cyber security. So there are again various things within a security: identity as a service, security analytics, security incident management, threat analytics, right? You would have heard like the various virus attacks and other things, how that can be, threat analytics becomes very important. Last track, and one of the most important track, is data. Again, data is like various data pipelines, data lakes, visualization, all those things becomes very important. So data, again, some of the skill wise, some of the technology wise, data heavily use Python as a technology. So Python is a very powerful language when it comes to cloud. And app modernization, I forgot to tell you, Java, Spring Boot, right? Spring Boot kind of technologies are becoming extremely important for microservices. Kubernetes, I have mentioned about. So visualization is about like when you have data, you are processing it. Now, what about how will you visualize the data? Now you can see that very attractive dashboards, very interactive dashboards. So there are tools like Tableau, Looker, those kind of things. That is another path within the data. AIML, while I added it as a sub-bullet in data, it is a track by itself. Okay, AIML becomes a track by itself in the cloud, and you will see that as days progress, you will see more and more focus on AIML. Again, AIML, there are various tools, various things, and again, it uses language like Python and other things, but there are various AI frameworks. Say, for example, Google uses a framework called Vertex AI. SageMaker is something AWS uses, right? So there are various kind of AI frameworks. Now you can go to the next slide. I know we have only 5 minutes. I'll probably skip the challenges of cloud computing. I know some part I have already discussed. Team can take a note of it. This is I just want to give a view of the certification path. I know many of you are interested in what are the certification paths. See, again, I'm not trying to here to sell Google. I'm just taking Google as an example because I do not want to confuse you with multiple CSP. So we thought we'll take one CSP as a referral point. So if you really look at it, Google's cloud has various certification path. A foundation certification path, which is like a very high level, it is a Google Cloud Digital Leader. Cloud Engineer is again not a professional certification associate. It actually tells you, right, what are the various aspects on a cloud. Say, for example, I was talking about infra, app, data. So all those things it will touch upon at a very high level, right? It will not go deep, but it will touch upon each. So it will give you a complete view of a cloud, but again, a 30,000 feet high, right? Not very deep, but it will give you a overall understanding of various things. Now, professional side, cloud architect, you can say that it's one level above cloud engineer, again at a high level. Then rest of them are very, very specific, right? You can see that there's something called DevOps separately, something for data separately, security separately. So this is the certification path. And if you need more details, I can share with Precha and Sanmay. So with that, I'll end the session. I know we have only 3 minutes. We can take any questions.
Thank you so much, Sachin, for this wonderful session. We'll take all the questions that we have. So before we move forward, I have a question that has been omnipresent and it has been submitted quite a few times by all of our participants. So it's a chicken and egg problem when it comes to making a career in cloud. You need experience to get your foot in the door, and you need to get a job to gain that experience. So how would you, what would be your tips for somebody who is a complete fresher in this domain to, kind of get those initial set of expertise to, get your foot in the door for those coveted cloud roles? So we'll start with you, Sachin, and then we'll take your opinion, Tanmay.
Yeah, see, very interesting question. And I know this question is asked many times, not just on cloud. See, one best way to enter in the cloud is certifications. Okay, certifications are very highly respected in the market, right? Because everyone knows that these certifications are completely vouched by the CSPs. So certification, if you have certification, you get a minimum eligibility criteria by default. When if you are entry. Second thing is that I was talking about various paths, right? If in any of those tracks you have a prior experience, not on cloud, but on non-cloud world, you have a prior experience. For example, infra, you have an experience on network in a non-cloud world. That will become very useful when it comes to cloud. So you have a knowledge on something on the non-cloud area, and then you take a cloud certification. That will make a beautiful way to get started on cloud.
Thank you so much, Sachin. Over to you, Tanmay.
So Sachin made a really brilliant point, and I would just like to add on his point. So you'll have to do certifications. Either you should have a pedigree of some IITs, IIMs, or NITs, etc. If you have that pedigree, then it is given that you have a required information or knowledge of what a company might expect from you. So if you have that pedigree, then it is justifiable that you do not have any certifications. But if you do have any certifications, and even if you do not, my request to all of you would be to choose one technology and to choose one vertical and work dedicatedly towards it. Because going forward, let me tell you guys, it will be very vertical focused. It will be very technological focused. You'll see a person who has an intense focus on telecommunication, and he is good at, let's say, one technology, which maybe could be ERP. Then his demand in the job market will be very high. So what Sachin said, and adding on to that, choose a specification, do your certifications on that, and keep yourself abreast of all the news and all the latest updates on everything else. So that would be my 2 cents on this topic.
Thank you so much, Tanmay, and thank you so much, Sachin. We are at the clock here, so we have we don't want to, but we'll have to bid you adieu. And with that being said, this conversation was brought in association with InLustro. So go check out their website at inlustro.co and check out all the resources and the trainings that they provide. And thank you so much, Tanmay and Sachin, for the nuggets of wisdom that you imparted. And we'll look forward to hosting you again in the future. And I'm pretty sure that all of our participants will go home with a lot of takeaways. And for everybody who is present in this call, this session is recorded. You will get the recording and posted on our website. So visit powertofly.com. Head over to the chat and learn section to find the recording of this session. It should be live in about 1 or 2 days. So yeah. We look forward to hosting you in the future, and we have a ton of chat and learns just like this one planned for you in store, where we talk about a lot of things from cloud computing to big data to, blockchain and all of those things. So make sure to, reap those benefits and learn from those. Thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to seeing you in another chat and learn. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.